Celebrating 46 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack literally on a field trip, launching 2 more initiatives. Plus, the Supreme Court says no to another appeal, this one to a checkoff challenge. In Southern Gardening, Gary says good things still come in small packages. And in our feature, another chance to meet the 2021 Tree Farmer of the Year. Farm Week starts right now. Hello everybody, I'm Mike Russell. Good to have you with us here again on Farm Week as we begin our 46th season on the air. Zach is away on assignment. The nation's Secretary of Agriculture beat the holiday rush last week to get out of town for 2 different events aimed at rural America. John Torpy was on the trip and begins with a look at a new program to squeeze just a little more out of farm commodities.
USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack hit the road this week, announcing new policy initiatives in the Hawkeye State.
This is about creating new economic opportunity for farmers and for rural areas.
Vilsack's first stop was at a family-owned dairy and creamery in Ely, Iowa, where he announced a $10 million pilot program designed to encourage the creation of bio-based products in rural America. The intent of the package is to turn crop residue and other agricultural waste into construction materials and consumer products.
All of this is designed to support the climate-smart agricultural commodity initiative that this administration is focused on. And all of that is designed to create 2 things, more farm income and more jobs in rural places.
The directive in the bipartisan infrastructure law pairs the USDA with land-grant universities to study the pros and cons of manufacturing with materials derived from crop residue and farm waste. The following day, Secretary Vilsack stopped at a farm just west of Minburn. There he told a crowd that more than $4 billion has been distributed out of the USDA's Emergency Relief Program. The payments were made to agricultural and livestock producers who were impacted by severe weather events in 2020 and 2021.
I think we're now realizing that we're going to see disasters of unprecedented number or unprecedented strength or unprecedented cost. And so we need to have the flexibility to be able to shift and adjust our disaster programs to meet the regional or local need.
The Disaster Relief Fund was created in 2021 when President Joe Biden signed it into law. A total of $10 billion is available for producers impacted by wildfires, droughts, hurricanes, winter storms, and other natural disasters eligible for aid. The relief package also covers livestock producers who incurred losses due to drought and wildfire in 2021.
There's no question that checkoff programs play a significant role in supporting ag commodities and that millions of dollars are involved. In the beef industry, one of the most complex in the nation, about half of American ag revenue is from meat production. The Supreme Court recently denied a challenge to the beef checkoff, saying the program is effectively operating as it should be. That doesn't mean there's no controversy, though. Peter Tubbs has that story.
The United States Supreme Court rejected a challenge from Ranchers Cattlemen Action Legal Fund United Stock Growers of America, or RCAF, over the implementation of the beef checkoff program. In 2016, RCAF alleged the beef checkoff required cattle producers to subsidize the private speech of private entities, namely marketing arms of state beef boards. RCAF won an initial injunction in 2017, after which the USDA entered a memorandum of understanding with the beef councils of 20 states to centralize the marketing messages for the beef checkoff. The Ninth Circuit Court ruled in 2021 that the reorganization by the USDA satisfied RCAF's request that beef checkoff dollars not fund private speech. The Supreme Court concurred by not hearing the challenge. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association noted the end of the lawsuit. The Supreme Court's rejection of RCAF's petition confirms the beef checkoff and its overseers are adhering to the letter and spirit of the laws that protect and guide producer investments in the program. RCAF is pledging to seek further changes to the operation of the beef checkoff.
We continue to work in Congress on legislation that would achieve the reforms we seek in the Checkoff program, including making the Checkoff a purely voluntary program as opposed to a mandatory program, which makes it just a huge subsidy program in the cattle industry. And it's a subsidy program that we believe benefits the multinational corporations at the expense of America's independent cattle producers.
More on the cattle industry as we've reported a bill to increase price transparency between meat packers and cattle producers made its way out of the Senate Ag Committee. Many outside the Beltway with mud on their boots are concerned about the unintended effect this measure might have on the cattle industry itself. We spoke with one of those cattlemen who built his independent feedlot with his brother and sees the legislation as a major threat to his way of life.
Senator Grassley alluded to the fact that there's no independent feedlots anymore. Mr. Ruffin, who is a rancher and an attorney in Missouri who testified along with me, basically said there's no such thing as independent feedlots anymore. It's all corporate, which I'm not going to deny. There's a lot of corporate feed yards out there that own all their cattle, but they have to get those cattle somewhere, and that's farmers and ranchers from across the U.S. But my business, we are exclusively custom. So my brother and I started with nothing. We literally bought a feedlot with a handshake as our down payment and collateral. And one of our loan covenants was, you're not going to own cattle. We had way too much risk and were highly leveraged to begin with. And our bankers said, no, cattle ownership is not going to be a part of our deal. The special investigator bill, that I would argue the authority to make sure that the packers and stockyards is followed already exists, and duplicating or creating another agency, for one, adds to levels of bureaucracy. It does confuse who has jurisdiction. And frankly, if you ask me, it's an admission on behalf of Congress that they haven't been enforcing the laws that were already in place to begin with.
On the lighter side, if you don't have a lot of room for highfalutin landscaping, never fear. In this week's Southern Gardening, Gary Bachman says that good things come in small packages. In other words, small yard doesn't necessarily mean small impact. Here's Gary.
I'm always inspired by the potential of a small landscape space. Let's take a look at how simple ideas and techniques transforms a small backyard. I love this raised landscape bed, from the pavers to the plant selections. New Gold Lantana, an original Mississippi medallion selection in 1996, with its sprawling growth and golden yellow flowers, anchors the ends. This bed is a pollinator magnet, starting with the red and orange tropical butterfly weed. The Mystic Spire salvia is impressive with the bright blue flower spikes. Candy corn cupfia has upright red stems covered with yellow and red tubular flowers that resemble the tasty kernels of the sugary candy it's named after. Yellow shrimp plant, a 2000 Mississippi medallion winner, completes this raised bed. On the other side of the yard, the red shrimp plant complements its yellow cousin. I love the hanging baskets on the fence that are overflowing with red-orange purslane and bright red geranium. Colorful containers are featured on the back porch. Dipladenia is a great choice for color in the full sun container. The full bushy growth with colorful funnel-shaped flowers are gorgeous. Other container-grown selections include the magenta variegated sun patiens, yellow-flowered calibrachoa, and more geraniums. A couple of focal points for me are the woven trunk tropical hibiscus and the big tomato plant. This backyard is a great example that a small space can have big landscape impact. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and I'll see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but stick around. Coming up on Farm Week, another chance to meet the 2021 Tree Farmer of the Year. Zach heads to Hancock County, Mississippi, where we meet a steward of the land that's been in his family for 70 years. He is a tree farmer, but he's a conservationist too, in every sense of the word. He knows ecosystems, endangered animals, erosion management, and how to give back to the community. The 2021 Tree Farmer of the Year, that's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership, that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
This week in the markets, something a little different. Corn is a regular on the show. With supply chain and weather issues, the price jumping up and down just like wheat and soybeans. And like those grains, corn is a valuable asset. But why? From Zach Ashmore, a special report, What is Corn?
Corn, a common sight in ag country. You can travel miles and see nothing but graceful stalks swaying in the breeze. In Mississippi, it's the fourth highest commodity, with over 129 million bushels produced in 2021. Not only that, but nationwide, U.S. corn growers produced 15.1 billion bushels last year, according to the USDA. So, what makes this plant so unique? What exactly is corn?
Corn is a temperate plant that is grown in areas of significant rainfall, but moderate conditions overall. It likes mild temperatures, plentiful rainfall, but not abundant rainfall like you'd have in tropical regions. And it's an annual grass plant, which means that we plant it in the spring. It has a relatively long growing season. It's about 120 days or about 4 months in length. It's planted early in the spring. It grows through the summer. And in Mississippi, it's harvested late in the summer. In areas, other regions of the United States, it would be in the fall.
Like most row crops, corn has several growth stages experts refer to. VE through VT measure the plant's growth from seedling to fully grown and tasseling. R1 through R6 are the reproductive stages that produce the corn on cobs we're familiar with.
A corn plant is unique in that it has a separate male and female part on the plant. The tassel is a male part that sheds the pollen, and the ear contains silks which receive the pollen and are basically the female organ on the plant. Corn is somewhat unique in that it cross-pollinates, so the neighboring plants actually provide the pollen in many cases to pollinate the ears on the plants in the adjacent rows. So that's why you oftentimes need to plant more than 1 or 2 rows in your garden, because you need some physical space in order to facilitate the movement of that pollen to the ears on a separate plant in order for it to pollinate.
There are many kinds of corn varieties, but the one most commonly grown in the U.S. is not what you'd find in the grocery store.
Most of the corn that's grown in fields is what we call dent corn. It is developed because it produces a lot of starch, has a good feed value. Ears of corn that you would buy at the grocery store is going to be sweet corn. The type of plant is the same, it's just bred for a different purpose, and it has completely different characteristics as far as the kernels and the content of those kernels. It has less starch in the kernels and more sugar content, more water, and it just tastes better and it's a lot more palatable to humans. Sweet corn is picked during the middle of the reproductive stages before the kernels are completely mature. Corn that is harvested for normal use, you let the kernels completely mature and then actually dry down to a moisture that is suitable for long-term storage for use in bins and other facilities that hold grain.
So, the vast majority of corn grown in the U.S. is used as animal feed, but there are some other well-known uses for corn, such as ethanol or biodiesel, corn syrup, a common sweetener, and the starch itself, commonly used in cooking. But it's not just feed and industrial use that makes it popular. It also works well with other crops.
Corn is used in Mississippi primarily as a crop that complements our other two primary row crops in Mississippi in a crop rotation system. So corn is used and is grown in a field one year, and then we rotate that field the next year to cotton or soybeans generally. So that helps eliminate a lot of the pest issues, whether it be weeds, diseases, or insect issues. It eliminates a lot of those or greatly reduces the likelihood of those being a significant problem. Plus it has a significant benefit to both of the crops involved in the rotation system, which enhances the productivity of those crops as well.
So, what are the major problems farmers face when growing corn?
Corn is a little bit unique in that it is much more sensitive to what we call stand issues or emergence issues. Not only do we have to deal with having restrictions to plant the crop, but corn is very intolerant or very sensitive to issues that where we lose a certain percentage of the seedlings that don't successfully emerge, or they're delayed and stunted during the planting process, and the management and environmental restrictions that occur shortly after seeding the crop.
Corn is a valuable ag commodity, not only because of its versatility, but because with a little care and good weather, it can produce an abundance of grain.
It's a productive crop too that produces a lot higher volume of grain than a lot of our other row crops that are grown. Not only is it a high quality source of feed, it produces a high volume as well.
So, that's corn, a major player in the ag markets, grown all over the world, valued for its high output and many different uses.
Thanks, Zach. You're going to love this next story, also produced by Zach, about Mississippi's 2021 Tree Farmer of the Year. But the gentleman you're about to meet is more than just a tree farmer. He's a conservationist as well in every way possible. Meet Judd Brooke.
I'm Judd Brooke. I'm a tree farmer in Hancock County, Mississippi. We're standing on a piece of property known as Brookwood. It's in the very northern end of Hancock County. And we started purchasing this land back in 1952 when I was about 4 years old, and continued purchasing it through the years. When we bought the first land, trees were not the objective. My dad loved quail hunting, had bird dogs, and we actually were living in New Orleans, and we wanted a recreation place and a place to hunt. So the first 440 acres was done for that reason. Kept adding a little bit of acreage that joined it, and by the mid-50s, Dad met a forester who convinced Dad that he should be planting trees. We started out with slash pine. At some point in time, I realized that the longleaf was a superior tree, and we realized we had a lot of natural regeneration of longleaf pines, and just felt like it was the way to go in this particular area. The real interesting thing about this particular place is it is an example of the restoration of the longleaf pine oak ecosystem. We're a little more than just a tree farm, and tree farm is important, but we look at all aspects of tree farm, the wood, the water, the recreation, and the wildlife. And we've chosen to utilize the longleaf pine as the major tree on this particular tree farm.
To me, longleaf is the primary southern yellow pine. It was here in South Mississippi when Europeans got here. It's the, when we think of the piney woods, when Europeans got here, that's what was here. It was longleaf pine. So I tend to like things that were here naturally. Some of the challenges I think Judd faces, you've got a lot of Kogon grass, invasive species. So we will be managing that. We will not be controlling Kogon grass.
Judd has worked intensively trying to control it. We don't have herbicides that effectively control it, especially not in one application, so it takes multiple applications. The problem with some of these herbicides that we use is they're not Kogon grass specific, so they're going to kill anything that we spray, but that's okay in a lot of cases because Kogon grass is allelopathic, which means that it inhibits other plants from either germinating or growing. It also becomes a monoculture, and there's very little, if no, wildlife value for Kogon grass, so we've got to eradicate it if we're going to maintain the ecosystem and keep it intact.
So that's one of the challenges. Another one is to make sure he has an active burn program. He's a certified burn manager, so he's in control of his burn program, but getting that established and maintained. Not only dormant season burns, which is historically what's been done, but he's also started a transition into what we call growing season burns, which are during the summer part of the year. So this burning at 2 or 3 year interval, it helps maintain this diverse herbaceous understory. We're not gonna get rid of the woody material, the woody brush that's around here. What it does, it knocks it back and allows that herbaceous vegetation, the grasses and the forbs, allow those to dominate the site.
We definitely have the economic consideration of growing the trees. That's very important, and you need that for sustainability of being able to afford a block of land like this. So the trees are important. We've been hit really hard by hurricanes, first in '69, Elena in '85, and then of course Katrina, the eye of Katrina came right over here. I actually lost about 65% of my merchantable timber when Katrina came through here. But it did not do away with the basics of the longleaf ecosystem. We're managing not only for timber on this place, but for our recreation, wildlife. We've got a couple of beautiful creeks that flow into the Jordan River and therefore into Bay St. Louis. So I'm very conscious of stream management zones and best practices associated with stream management zones to cut down on any erosion that might end up being sediment in Bay St. Louis. We do a lot of recreation. We hunt, and a lot of kids hunt. We've had hunter education courses until such time as they started doing all on the computer.
A lot of these kids have never been in the outdoors, and a lot of inner city kids that have never been exposed to the outdoors and the wildlife. And there's been an untold number of youth that have been on this property that either caught their first fish or harvested their first deer. And if we can teach these kids as to what's going on and why this environment and this ecosystem is so important, we hopefully can perpetuate it in the future.
Most of us that have put together a block of land like this want to be good stewards of the land. In my case, I would sure hate to see development come in and take this. It's a prime example of the longleaf ecosystem, and it needs to be preserved. I hope I'm able to do that, and I'm looking at various methods to ensure that that does happen.
When I first started working here, Ms. Brooke was still living, Judd's mother. This place was impeccable already. And her attitude, when she first met me, she said, "So, you're going to make a show place out of my property?" And I said, "No, ma'am, you got a show place. I'm just going to help tweak it a little bit." And they, not only Judd was raised by conservationists, and they raised him up to love the land, and it shows.
I've been very blessed to have a couple of entities really help with it. One is the Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Program, and a lot of the longleaf was reestablished through that particular program. Also, NRCS has a longleaf pine initiative that's been very, very helpful both at establishing the longleaf and in maintaining it because of the programs that they have that help promote prescribed fire. It's a major effort, a major expense, and something that really needs to happen with the longleaf ecosystem. So I owe a lot to both NRCS and the Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Program.
Quite a story. Thank you, Zach. And congratulations once again to Mr. Brooke, the 2021 Tree Farmer of the Year. Well, next time on Farm Week, a second chance to meet last year's Logger of the Year. Forestry, a major commodity, of course, and last year's winner, a major player in the industry. The company's been around for 70 years, and naturally logging's changed, but travel with us to Purvis, Mississippi to meet the father-son team, keeping up with the times, contributing to a $13 billion economic footprint. The Logger of the Year next time on Farm Week. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. See you next week. Thanks for watching.